Hello viewers. In this video I am going to show you how to use the Biscuit Box stack. Biscuit Box is a stack which alerts your visitors of cookies on your page, and it helps you to be GDPR compliant. Let's dive right in and see how it is being configured. And as you can see, it's already put on the page. And let's go over into the inspector and see what settings we do have available. And let's first have a look at the preview section, where we have the option to display a sample text. I'm just closing the library quickly so that we have a little bit more space. Let's click on sample text, and this displays just a text which you can use as your template and start from there. Let's switch it off again. Next we have the test mode, which helps you to display the Biscuit Box all the time if you are testing your page. Even if you click the accept or decline button, it will always show up once you go into preview mode again. This will only be available in effective in preview mode, not if you publish it. So even if you leave it turned on and you publish your page, don't worry, this will not affect it. Next we have the exhaustive layout section. And first up we have the pop-up width. Here you can set the width of the warning pop-up according to your requirements. You have available different units like percent, pixels, EMs or rems. And if you are smaller than the entire viewport width, you can adjust the horizontal alignment accordingly. I will demonstrate this once we have a presentable pop-up configured. Next we have the pop-up position. You can have it to show up at the top or at the bottom of the page, and you can adjust the button position. I guess it would be helpful if we just jump right in and configure Biscuit Box so that you can see what I'm talking about. Let's open the library again, and first of all, Biscuit Box is independent of any framework. So you can use it in any combination with the frameworks on the market or different themes. And I'm going to use my favorite framework, which is Platform. Let's drop the platform settings stack on and put in the content stack for the info text. Now we need an accept button and a decline button. Let's name them properly or label them properly, like accept and here decline. And already we have a functioning Biscuit Box. Let's display it quickly in preview. Here we have it. The pop-up position is at the top right now. Let's go to bottom. Now it's at the bottom of the page. And now we can have a look at the button positions. Currently they are in line with the text, and we can set them to be below the text. You see we have different options here. If we go inline, we can adjust the text width. Like if we set it to 1, the text is fairly narrow and there is more space for the buttons. And if we set it to 10, the text will occupy most of the width and the buttons less. All right, let's have a look at what's available if we have the buttons below. We can adjust our text bottom padding. This is the distance between the buttons and the text. Currently it's set to 1. If I set it to a higher value like 14, you see that there is more white space between the buttons and the text. Depends on your requirements. The last button in this line of button position activates the so-called free mode. Everything disappears. However, if you go back to our edit mode, you see that the drop zones have vanished. which means we have complete freedom to actually configure our Biscuit Box in terms of layout. So let's just pull over a 2-column stack and now put in our content again in the upper one, or in the left one in this case, if we go to this mode. And what you just saw was the mobile mode of platform. So we have our content in the left now. Let's put in the accept button and the decline button, which are substacks now. I'll put them in here and here below, the decline button area. And now we can put in any kind of button stack which we like into these drop zones, like our platform button here and there. Let's put in the proper text, like accept and decline. And the big advantage is that we now have full control over our layout with our platform or other framework. For example, we can now adjust the width of our columns. For example, if I go in column 1 to width of 8, then I have to, of course, reduce on the other hand to 4, and now we have a different layout. But still, everything listens to the main settings of Biscuit Box. So let's put this to be displayed at the top of the page. We still have that, for example. All right. Now let's go and customize the backdrop. You have the choice of all colors of your operating system, and the colors, the backdrop colors, also are listening to opacity. So if we want the page shines through in the background, then we can achieve that by using opacity. And of course, in this case, dark text and dark background is not a cool idea, so let's put this text to white. And that's basically the setting. Let's go on and see what the other settings are doing for us. And back in preview mode, now we have our box in dark red with opacity. Now we can actually start playing with the pop-up width. And if I, for example, set this to 75% of the viewport width, you have that immediately. Now, as we said before, you can adjust the horizontal alignment to left, center, or right, according to what you want. Next up, and I'll set the pop-up width to 100% again, we have the padding, which means this is the padding around our buttons and our text. It is by standard 20 pixels, so that the text is not flush with the borders of the pop-up, which you can provoke if you set this to 0, of course. But then you can also set it to 40 pixels to have a more generous padding around it. Next are the breakpoints for the display of the mobile version of Biscuit Box. It is responsive, and here you can set the medium screen size, meaning everything which is larger than 600 pixels is regarded as a medium screen size. Everything below would be a small screen size, for example, a smartphone. Then the large screen size is set here. In this case, right now, everything which is larger than 800 pixels width is regarded as a large screen. If you don't have any particular requirements to override this, just leave it as the standard. Then we have the mobile layout section, where you can set a particular button padding, and this is actually only active if you are not using the free mode. So let's go back to the button below mode, for example. and this has activated everything which was dropped into the drop zones before. So we still have to adjust the text color of our content stack. Done. Back to Biscuit Box, and if I go into the simulator mode, for example for an iPhone 8, we see that the responsive reaction was to put the buttons on top of each other. And if I go to the button padding and set that to a particular high value and back to the simulator, pixels might not have been enough. Let's put this to EMs. Back to the simulator. Now you see there is quite a padding between the two buttons. Now we get to the actual behavior of Biscuit Box, which is set in the parameters section. And here we have two options, which is for one the implied consent checkbox and the expiry days setting on the other hand. Let's first talk about implied consent, because this is very important. If your website is located in the EU, it should always be unchecked. And if you're outside the EU, it doesn't matter what kind of consent you actually prefer. Implied consent means that the web page assumes that by loading, the visitor is happy to have cookies on the page and the cookie scripts are being executed. They're only unloaded once the visitor clicks on the decline button. On the other hand, if implied consent is not checked, which means we're in the EU or we don't want that, the scripts which load cookies or enable cookies are only loaded once the visitor clicks on the accept button. Quite a difference. Next, the expiry days actually speaks for itself. This means how long it takes until the Biscuit Box pop-up is being displayed for this particular visitor again. You can set this to a minimum of 1 or whatever high value you would like, but a year seems to be a reasonable value. Now let's have a look at the script section. Here into the analytics scripts field, you would paste your JavaScript snippet for the analytics. For example, Google Analytics script would go here. Then you can have a second entry field for extra code, which should be executed. And below you can even link in 4 additional external scripts. And they all work the same, so let's have a look at one. You set the link here as usual, like here with the URL. It could also be a resource, but it depends on your settings. And secondly, you set the type of external script which you want to pull into your page. That could be JavaScript or CSS. Lastly, we have the extra section, which only consists of one entry field, which is the Z-index. By default, it is set to 9,999 because we want to make sure that it overlays everything which is on your page. If you don't need such a high Z-index, you can set this to whatever you require. But if there is no special reason to change it, leave it on the standard. This concludes the video about Biscuit Box. If you have further questions, just hop over to the documentation page. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. Bye-bye.